You're in a good place now. You are listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. Does fear rule your life? How much does fear rule your life, and what does it say about you? You know, fear is an interesting thing. Fear, panic, stress, anxiety, all those things are very interesting because they come from certain places. We feel them, we interpret it. Many times we have maybe new acquaintances or new whatever relationships, and we automatically assume the worst. You know, whether we receive an email from our neighbor, or we get a letter, or we get a call from someone we haven't talked to, we automatically feel fear and worried about the worst actually taking place. And it's interesting because when fear is ruling our life, we have a tendency of letting it take over, but we automatically fear for the worst. And so why is that? Why do we begin to live that way? Where did it start? Where did it come from? And what can you do to change it? You know, where it began is oftentimes we get indoctrined into the concept of fear. We get kind of branded that way. And it could have started at a very young age, or it could have been more recent. And, you know, when you think about it, you understand that when you kind of get, felt that way over and over again, you feel fear and you feel feeling, there's more fear and they impact that and you stress. Your first inclination and response to really anything becomes, fearful or stressed out or anxious or wondering, is this going to suck or not? How is this all going to work out? Is everything just going to work out or not? And so when fear is ruling and dominating our life, it's often because we don't feel secure in our day-to-day life. We might not feel like we have all the answers. Things might be changing at a rapid rate. We might feel overwhelmed with the concept of progress, and we feel like we don't have any steady, constant life. We also might be going through a lot of changes within our career, our home, our family, or even just our mind. And we're wishing and trying to find the answers to daily questions. So where does the fear come from? I find that oftentimes we interpret the world around us, and that interpretation becomes our inherent thought process, meaning we begin to see the world always through those types of colored glasses. Think about it. If we feel that most things are painful and agonizing and stressful and non-desirable, everything that comes our direction will feel the same. When people send us an email or call us out of the blue, we'll automatically assume the worst. There must have been damage, destruction, illness, panic. I mean, think about it. When was the last time your mom or dad called you and your first thought wasn't, oh, hey, they were thinking about me and wanted to say hi? Actually, quite the opposite. Your first thought was, oh my God, somebody's died. Somebody's died, and they're going to tell me. Somebody's died, and they're going to tell me, oh God, what am I going to do? Seriously, I mean, this is serious stuff here. I mean, some of you let fear and panic rule your world so much that you leave your phone on constantly in case somebody calls to tell you that they've been in an accident or somebody's dead. Some of you, I'm not going to name names or point fingers, but I know some of you that watch and read the obituaries every single day. And I know it might be because you might know a lot of people, and so there's a good chance that somebody might have died that you know. But I also wonder if there's a part of you that's scared of death and trying to offset it and knowing the fact that, hey, you've come one more day without dying. I mean, death is a big fear factor. I'm not going to make light of that. I'm not going to sit here and come on my show and say, oh, you shouldn't fear death. It's no big deal. What's wrong with you? Get your head out of your butt. It's easy breezy. No, I mean, that's a fear factor. But let's go to the simpler, easier things for right now, because I really don't want to tackle that in an hour setting. And I don't think you want me to talk about it as well. I think there's certain things that you kind of go, you know what, Ashley, I'm having a decent day, and I really don't want to go there, so we're not going to go there right now. But we are going to talk about fear in day-to-day life. We're going to talk about fear when it comes to our interactions, to our personal interactions, to our friends, to our family, to our future, to the things that we've done in our life, to the things that we want to do in our life, to the fear of regret. What about the fear of wondering if we are on target? Are we doing what we need to do? Are we on the road to our purpose? Are we on the road to our purpose? Because I think when we were able to sit there and realize, hey, I'm on the road to my purpose. I'm doing what I was supposed to do. I'm doing what I am doing. I'm doing what I need to be doing. All of a sudden, life gets a little easier. Because we realize that there is some sort of synergy that rules the universe. And it's not all just, throw it up on the wall and see what sticks. Right? I've been in my life before where fear was ruling my every emotion. Whether it was fear of abandonment or fear of what they thought about me. Isn't that a good one? Oh my God. The fear of what people think about you is one of the biggest fears that people think about all the time. Oh my God. What do you think they're saying about me? Do you think they're talking about me? Oh my God. I know they're making fun of my outfit. I can feel it. Seriously, the fear of what people are saying about you is a big deal. Or what they're thinking about you. When you go on stage to make that speech in front of your office, are they all making fun of you? Or do you have some sort of validity? It's interesting what we wonder about what people think and feel about us. And we get so fearful on what people think and feel that we don't even think about how we feel about us. It's too busy about making them happy. Making them all warm and fuzzy. Who cares? But we've been indoctrinated into that concept. The people-pleasing gene. Want to make everybody happy gene. I don't want anybody to hate me. I want everybody to like me. I want everybody to be my best friend. I used to have those My Little Ponies as a kid. Why don't you get a set of My Little Ponies and sit in the corner and play with them? Because you know what? Honestly, that's where you are if you really care about what everybody thinks. Because you're not going to make everybody happy. And some of the people are just not going to like you just for the fact that they don't like you. It's nothing you've done. It's just they don't like you. I had it happen you always occasionally have this happen throughout life. It's just the way life works. If you're a decent person, people like you, you're outgoing, you're a nice person, you know what I mean? For the most part, not many people dislike you. Okay? And the few people that dislike you, they dislike you because there's something about you that irritates the living crap out of them, or you remind them of somebody, or they just don't like you because you rub them the wrong way. Somebody that's really unhappy is not going to really enjoy being around somebody that's pleasantly happy all the time. It's going to get freaking irritating, okay? And so when you're out there trying to please all these people, why? It's like going to a comedy for a film, wanting to go see a comedy, and you go to a painful, scary horror film. It's not going to work. It's two different genres, okay? They don't crisscross. They just don't. Okay, they just don't. There is no sick horror film that's funny. Okay, seriously, think about it. If you cannot crisscross on genres, if somebody feels a certain way and that's the way they are, they're not going to accept the other around them. And also, there's a caveat. Some people won't like you because you remind them of themselves. Because whatever you're doing, what they feel is wrong, and it's annoying them, it's not the fact that it's just wrong and annoying them. It's actually magnifying personal skill sets or personal attitudes that they have, which upsets them and just kind of infuriates them and makes them want to run. So when I return, I'll be talking more about fear. More about the fear factor in life. Because I really want to talk about the fear factor because that matters so much. Because the fear factor, when we're fearful, we don't do what we probably should do because we're scared of what will happen. And what happens to not doing what we need to do? Well, that leads to what? Regret. And what does regret lead to? Depression and sadness and a lost sense of self. And it's funny how we lose our sense of self the more and more we care about what other people think. It's funny how we lose our sense of self when we go away from who we truly are and begin to question our purpose and to be questioning ourselves. But when fear comes into our life, that becomes something that takes us off target completely. It can take away all the foundation you have, all the structure you have, and it takes over in your mind and body, and it makes for a very shaky, unsettling situation. Check out the website, ashleyburgess.com, ashleyberges.com. Check out the latest shows as well as Spreaker, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and across the country. And live your true life perspectives. Your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back this time. You know it. I'll be back this time in 2 shakes.
Turn it up and jump in the deep end on Perspectives. Now, here's Ashley.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. This episode is sponsored by GameFly. GameFly lets you rent over 8,000 games and movies with no due dates and no late fees. For a free 30-day trial, including 1 game rental, visit GameFlyOffer.com/Ashley. Tonight I'm asking you, does fear rule your life? How much fear do you feel in day-to-day activity? In dealing with interactions, personal interactions, professional interactions, work, home, the future, your kids, everything. How much does fear take over in your life? And I'm asking you this because when we have a lot of fear in our life, it says something about us. It says something about us. And it's not a bad thing. It's not like, ooh, you're a bad person because you got a lot of fear in your life. No, nothing like that. But it does show us that when we have a lot of fear in our life, we're running away from something possibly. We could be running away from ourselves. Okay? We might be allowing a lot of outside influences into our life. Okay? Because if we allow a lot of outside influences into our life, we could be allowing a lot of media content and other people's issues that are chaotic, stressful, maybe just kind of sad or demented into our life, and we begin to focus on that type of stuff. And that type of stuff causes us to have fear. And let me give you a good example. And this is a simple example, but you can understand how it extrapolates into your day-to-day life. So let's say like your best friend is like the biggest fearful scaredy cat you know, and they're always constantly watching the news every single second on how bad our world has become and how we're all going to hell in a handbasket and how all these bad things are happening. And there was a murder in Missouri, and that murder happened. What am I going to do? You know, I mean, bad things do happen in this world. But how we deal with it is important. And there are some people that cannot detach at all. And I'm not saying that detachment is correct on everything, but I'm saying is that some people, when something happens, no matter where it is on the planet, they automatically see themselves, something happening to themselves. Oh, God. Oh, God, that could have been me. That could have been my daughter. That could have been my family. And all of a sudden, they begin to live their life in a different way. All of a sudden, they begin to shield their family from any sort of harm. And by being a helicopter mom, by locking every door and putting in a new security system and literally detaching from society. And then they call you on the phone and tell you, you better watch out. You better be careful. It could happen to you. You're all, willy-nilly with what you're doing. You're not thinking about the consequences. And you're just trying to kind of keep it all together. Okay? Another good example is when somebody calls you about their future and how they've ruined their life, and you begin to put that on yourself. It's the same way that we look at an auto accident when we're driving up on an accident on the highway, and we check to make sure it's nobody we know. Okay? It's the same thing. Because no matter what it is, good, bad, or indifferent, we constantly think about it in our own terms. So when somebody tells you that something happened to them, at first, you're there for them. You care about them. You're trying to help in any way possible. But then you begin to reflect on your own life. Then you begin to project that thought to your whole entire meaning and being within your life. So let's talk about fear. Let's talk about the fear of, a lot of people have the fear of abandonment, of people leaving them. And that really comes from usually either something that recently happened, for example, a mother or father died, leaving the person feeling abandoned. Perhaps the spouse, the wife or the husband got up and left and wants a divorce. Okay? That can be an immediate feeling of abandonment. Perhaps somebody lost their child died. Or it could come from the past. Okay, so if something's immediate, something's immediate. It just happens. So you have to let people go through it, grieve through it, and go through the process and overcome it. But there are some things that have lived with us for our entire lives, or at least since the beginning. A good example that I deal with in my own practice is working with clients with borderline personality disorder, BPD. And one of the reasons they really kind of constructed this was a security mechanism, was a safety mechanism, but it's really derived from some key points. And one of those key points and one of those things that can happen is abandonment, okay? When somebody's abandoned at a very young age by a father or mother, guardian, you see what I'm saying? And when you're abandoned and you're scared and you're young, you never want to feel that way again. So you never want to feel abandoned again. You never want to go through that pain and that agony. No matter what it costs, no matter what pain and agony you put yourself through, you still don't want to go through that. And so you create this security mechanism, okay, so that you never feel that abandonment again, being that oftentimes instead of ever getting abandoned, you will abandon somebody at just literally the flash of a camera, the click of a button, the literally anything will make you run. And I'll give a good example about that. Oftentimes, clients will come in my office and tell about their wife, husband, girlfriend, boyfriend that have BPD and how they keep pushing them away, and how sometimes it can be the most amazing experience in their life. They can have the most amazing conversation and they can feel really connected, but literally minutes and hours after that connection, the person literally is telling them they never want to talk to them again, get the heck out of my life, I hate you, whatever, because they want to run, because they don't want to get abandoned. They don't want to put their feelings out there and then the other person leave. But we construct these walls so heavy, made out of so much cinder block and concrete, that it's hard to see the forest through the trees. So oftentimes, because the abandonment took place so long ago, we don't even realize we're doing it now. And fear is one of those things that I call that a negative emotion, because it doesn't do anything for us but make us scared, stressed out, keep us away from our goals and our dreams, and really kind of just take away from the love and the joy of life. I mean, there's a lot going on, but when we're filled with fear, we don't enjoy it. Life becomes laborious and scary. And we wonder what's going to be around the next corner or what's going to happen next, and will you survive? Instead of, wow, this is amazing. I never thought I would experience this. Wow, what a beautiful day. And I'm so glad I'm out here, and I'm so glad I'm doing all these things. But instead we see the opposite. We see the problems. We see literally everything that can go wrong. And we worry, will the other shoe fall? And it's a very interesting concept, and I feel that fear, all in all, allows us to be scared, to feel frustrated, but it leads to a lifetime of regret until we're able to deal with it. Until we're able to literally realize that we have fear controlling our life, there's not much we can do. We're kind of stuck because we're using fear as our filter, okay? It's kind of similar. If we're using fear as our life filter, right? It's very similar to if we were using a water filter of poop. Okay? You know I like potty humor a lot here on the show. And so let's just say you had a filter. Instead of charcoal, you put poop in there. And you filtered your water through that. How would that be? How would it be? It would be awful, and you wouldn't drink it. But fear does the same thing. It filters our entire life feeling scared, stressed out, angry, worried, depressed, and it keeps us from doing what we want to do in life. And until we realize where the fear is coming from, we can't do anything about it. You see what I'm saying? Because it's like that, it's just the elephant in the room. Where's it coming from? Can I pinpoint it? Do I know where it's coming from? Do I understand? Do I understand that maybe this started at a young age, or did it recently start? Or did I construct this in my own mind in fear of failure? Or in fear of success? I think there's more fear of failure than anything else. I think success, I think that's a nice positive way of putting it, but I think most of us are scared of failure, of not accomplishing what we want in life, of not accomplishing dreams or being successful, or worried, will other people do what they want to do and we are going to get stuck? Worried that we might miss the mark altogether. What if we miss out and don't get to experience life as we want to? What if we never get married? What if we never have children? What if we never have that aha moment? And instead of allowing things to happen and living our life to make that happen, we literally put the fear factor so deep within our mind and in our body that we actually miss out on the good things happening in our life. Check out the website, ashleyburgess.com. If you'd like to contact me, click on the contact page and send me a message, and I'll get back to you in 48 hours. Live Your True Life Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess. We'll be back. Well, I guess I got to think about that. I'll be back this time in 2 shakes.
This is Jake Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. This episode of Live Your True Life Perspectives is brought to you by GameFly. GameFly has over 8,000 newly released and classic games available for rent for one low monthly price. As a GameFly member, you can rent as many console and handheld games as you want, and you can get them delivered right to your mailbox. Games are shipped to arrive on the actual game release dates, so there's no more standing outside for any releases. You can rent classics or new release games, Xbox One, Xbox 360, PS4, PS3, PS Vita, the Wii U, and older systems as well. If you love the game and don't want to send it back, you can keep it at a discounted rate. One disc plan is $15.95, 2 disc plan is $22.95. And there are no contracts, new due dates, and no late fees. Instead of buying 2 or 3 games per year, sign up for a year's worth of GameFly and rent as many games as you want. Visit GameFlyOffer.com/Ashley to sign up for a premium 30-day trial. That gets you 1 free game rental. Again, it's GameFlyOffer.com/Ashley. We're talking about fear right now. I'm talking about the fear factor. How much fear is in your life? And I think in order for us to ask ourselves, what does it mean? Why do we have this fear? Where did it come from? What am I doing? Where is my life heading? I think we got to ask, where's the fear coming from? Once you know where your fear is coming from, you can begin to change it. Once you know where your fear is coming from, you can begin to identify it. Once you know where the fear is coming from, you can stop it, augment it, look at it, see what needs to be changed, see what you can do, change it, and happily move on. So where is the fear coming from in your life? Because I think all of us, to some degree, have some fear. I think a lot of us have stress and fear of failure, of not living up to our potential, of not living up to our personal expectations. Isn't that really it? We expect to do this or to do that. And when we don't live up to it, it can be very upsetting, sad, depressing, stressful. It can actually bring anxiety and discontent. So where is that coming from? Is that from your expectations, the way you were raised, your beliefs, your personal beliefs? Or has that been over time that you've constantly beaten yourself up, wanting to be better, striving to be better? Or has life just been somewhat challenging? And you've worked really hard, but things just seem to have not gone your way. What about, does fear come from your family or friends? Do they seem to instill it within your brain? Do they seem to bring it with them? Instead of a bottle of wine to your house, they bring fear, stress. You might want to think about that. It's obviously within them, and they're kind of giving it to you. Remember, when you're around people that are very fear-based or very sad or angry-based, you can bring it up to them. You can kind of show them a different way of life, and you can help them to see that. But remember to constantly washing your mental hands, because fear is easily caught. Okay, it's very easily moved to a new host, depending on what somebody tells you, or what they insist you to watch on TV, or what kind of media they think that you should be aware of. All those things can cause you to get off target from your own life, from doing the best you can, from making those amazing things happen in life that have ripple effects and wave effects that help everybody in your life stream. Basically, they can get you off target from that and get you stuck in a world of fear and worried about what's going to happen next. Oftentimes the fear comes from within our mind. Our mind, as you might not realize, can be our worst enemy. Our mind can be our worst enemy. What we feed it mentally, and what we feed it by media and music and our past and what we believe and all this stuff can really, infect us like a disease. It's interesting how people can be ruled by their mind, and the mind is telling them things that have no basis of reality. But if it's thought about as much as possible, or it's constantly thought about, or the thoughts are over and over and over again like a broken record, they become reality. And fear is something that doesn't have, there's no basis of reality. Okay? Let me give you a good example of fear. The more and more fear we have, we keep fearing the worst. And I realize there is a potential, a percentage point of some of these things happening, but we begin to create it, and as we create more and more fear, we get more and more anxious. Okay, and it can be difficult with some people with fear because it makes it hard for them to breathe, hard for them to focus, and when we get to that spot in the fear factor, we're out of control. Okay, we've gotten mentally, emotionally, physically out of control. And the reason why we spiral through that is because we've allowed our mind to basically create this puzzle and weave this yarn that we have fallen hook, line, and sinker to. And that's very interesting and powerful when you think about it, because our minds can be our best friends and our worst enemy. Our mind can constantly tell us how great we are and how we've learned and how impressive we've become and how we've worked every day to be better than we were yesterday, not competing against others. Or our mind can tell us how crappy we are, how we're lesser than everybody we come into contact with, and how we're lucky that we just don't shoot ourselves and kill ourselves and get ourselves out of the misery. Okay? So a lot of the fear that we have could be coming from our mind. So it's manufactured within. And remember, an environment that we live in is extremely important. So you know how when people talk about biological or environmental, right? And people say, well, the baby was born biologically this way. But then if we look at environmental stats and we realize where the baby lived, this baby had a propensity of being X, Y, Z. Well, environment is a big deal. So being born in one person's womb, yes, that's the environment that they were born in. But then when they move into a home and they're in a certain city, that's their environment. Now let's go a step further in environment. The environment that you are housed in is your body. That is your home of origin. Okay? If your home of origin is out of sync, if it's off, if it's really stressed out, if it's based in fear, you're not going to be very healthy of mind, body, spirit. And so as we go through this tonight, I want you to really focus on where is the fear coming from, because in our last segment, I'm going to be talking about how you can take your life back. And you can use this in any way, shape, and form when it comes to fear, because fear is that same type of negative emotion, and fear is the opposite of love, and fear is what separates us from all others on the planet. Okay, it's a separating tactic. It's used oftentimes in certain media to make sure that we don't uprise, right? Because if we all realized that we were not really fighting each other and we were all unified, then, we could actually be a force worth reckoning with. That would be a problem, that could actually cause, that could change the world. And so if we can continue to create this fear factor, okay, across the lines, then we separate people in their own neighborhood. We separate people from speaking or talking because they automatically assume that that person's either racist or is going to kill them, or they could be a serial killer or what have you, when the biggest probability is that they probably have some of the same similar feelings, thoughts, and they would probably really get along if they just took a minute to get to know each other. If it's in your mind, what about if the fear is in your past? Fear can be something that we have been best friends with our whole life. Fear could be that enemy that you have kept with you for over time, since the beginning of time, that you can't seem to shed. And that friend, that buddy, has kept you from doing anything worth doing as long as it possibly can, because you've held on to it like grim death. And so a lot of times we have to let go of our past. We have to see it. We don't want to forget some of the things that happened. We want to forgive. We don't want to forget because we don't want to do it again, right? But we want to get past that, and we want to accept our past and say, you know what? Some bad crap happened in my past, but I'm not going to let it rule my life. And some of you might need to go see a therapist, somebody like me, to deal with that past stuff, to get past it, to move on with it, and I can help with that. And some of you just need to be able to be cognizant that it exists to let it go. It's up to you to let it go. Perhaps you do a little ceremony with a balloon, putting your past failures and your past worry into that balloon and letting it soar up, and mentally, meditationally realizing that you're letting go of the past. Check out the website, ashleyburgess.com. Check out Spreaker and some of the latest shows on there. I just did a recent show on ADD, and it's pretty cool, and it might connect with you, a spouse, or a child. Stay tuned. Live Your True Life Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess. Will be back this time. I swear I'll be back. Don't be fearful. I'll be back this time in 2 shakes.
You could be my luck.
Get in here. You're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. Tonight I've been talking about fear, about where the fear comes from. Because in order to figure out about our fear and to slow it down, to stop it, and to reverse it, we have to realize where it is coming from. Okay? That's like anything in life. If you have like a water leak, you're not going to sit there and go, well, I guess I don't know where it is. I guess I'm going to let the whole house flood. We'll figure it out later. No, you go find out where the leak is, right? What about a gas leak? Yeah, you're right on that one. And sure, the gas company's on top of that one too. They don't want the whole block blowing up. And so when we want to find something in our life, we need to pinpoint it. Just the same as finding a gas leak or a water leak or a letter that you lost in the mail, whatever that is. It's time to really focus on our fear and to figure out where it's coming from. And right before the break, I was talking about how fear comes from our fear of failure in our life, our fear of not living on purpose, of not doing the right thing, of not being able to live up to the expectation, our own personal expectations of ourselves. The fear that maybe family and friends make us feel about life in general, or maybe about our own personal life, and we get scared and we get stressed out. What about fear coming from the mind? Your mind can manufacture more fear than anything on the planet. You can imagine anything. And when your imagination is filled with fear, it can be debilitating, keeping you away from people, away from your dreams, and away from what you want in life. There's also fear from our past. Many of us have had checkered past, scared, stressful past, Maybe there was some abandonment issues. Maybe there was a lot of catastrophe, a lot of drama, a lot of pain. But in order to not live based on that pain, we've got to begin to accept it, forgive it, not forget it, and let it go. Because I understand that it was painful, but do you want your entire life ruled by that? It kind of seems like a waste, and it kind of seems that you're giving that pain the ruling. Like you're giving it your pain like being the ruler, the king and the queen of your kingdom, when you should be letting go of that pain. Because that pain is only pain in its own. It's not worth it. What happened in the past happened in the past, and sadly enough, it's painful. But we don't want it to rule our life forever. What about your future uncertainties? Oftentimes, when we are uncertain in our future, we can get scared about the next step. What's going to happen? What are we going to do? What if this doesn't happen? What if I don't have this? What if I don't get married? What if I don't ever allow this to happen? What if this all falls apart and my life falls apart in front of my very eyes? And so that future uncertainty. And remember, the past is the past. The future is the future. But the only thing we can control is the present moment. And that present moment is what's important. Also, last but not least, before I want to talk about how you take your life back, is the fear of feeling out of control. Many times in life we can feel out of control because we feel things are happening basically unbeknownst to us. We feel as though we have no finger on the pulse, and we worry about what's going to happen next. And that can be an overwhelming fear factor, feeling out of control. But again, we have to ground ourselves in the moment. And we have to identify that that's where our fear is coming from. Because if we know that our fear is coming from one particular region, we can begin to understand how to overcome it. So now, how do we take our life back when it comes to fear? How do we take our life back when it comes to the fear in our life? The first thing you can do, no matter if it's coming from your mind or your fear of failure or the uncertainty or your fear of being out of control or the fear of not fitting in, is to live 1 minute at a time. Much like a person trying to quit smoking, right? When you're trying to quit smoking and you quit smoking and you have your last cigarette, and then after that, you're like, okay, I'm never going to smoke again. And when I talk to my clients, I say, don't ever say you're never going to smoke again. Just say, I'm not smoking now. And it's a minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day process, because we're not sitting there thinking about, oh my God, I'm never going to have another cigarette. I mean, that's a doomsday response that's probably not going to help you quit. Okay. But it's the same thing of dealing with fear. Okay. When you're living your life 1 minute at a time, you're able to identify where the fear comes from, and you can see it creep up slowly, not overwhelming to the point where it makes you literally debilitated. Okay? So when you're living 1 minute at a time, you're really focusing on the moment. You're in the present moment. You're not thinking about past pain. Okay? You're aware of when past pain, the pain body, creeps into your mind, right? You're aware of that because you're living in the moment. You can kind of see it happening in slow-mo. And you're also aware of the fact when the stress of the future that has been unseen and we have no way of figuring that out comes and creeps in to our day-to-day life. And you're able to identify that only when you're living in the present moment. The second thing that I highly suggest is to stop overthinking it. Don't overthink it. Life is really not that complicated when you think about it. I know some of us love the drama factor. We love the drama factor. Oh God, what if that happened? Wow, what if that happened? I mean, and you're thinking, oh my God, it's great for a TV show, but do you even want to think about that happening? And oftentimes, when we begin to overthink something, we get into a stress level, we get into an alternative state, we become stressed out, we become fearful of the future because it's something new, it's something almost unattainable, and it really somewhat is. So when we kind of put ourselves back and realize that it's all about taking that moment, being in the moment, but better yet, realizing when we're overthinking something or allowing portions of disreality or unreality to become part of our reality. The third thing is that if it scares you in a good way, if something comes to you or you have to fulfill some obligation and it scares you in a good way, like it propels you forward and shows you like the moxie you have and the power you have, that's great. But if it scares you in a way that stagnates you and basically stops you from movement, you need to run away from that. Because if it scares you in a good way and makes you think and feel and makes you jump out of that old way of doing things, it makes you jump out of that, it's perfect, it's amazing stuff. You need to surround yourself more with that. You need to push yourself more. Like if you're scared about, well, I want to make this speech and I'm scared to talk in front of somebody. I'm scared of talking, but this is my life dream. You've got to push yourself to speak in front of people, to begin to speak in front of 2, 4, 5, 10, 50, 100 people. Even though it might scare the living bejesus out of you, you've got to do it, but it scares you in a good way. And that's what you want more in your life. And last but not least, when we realize that it's not a competition, life is not a competition. I know we think that way because every TV show in the world, like reality show, like is a race to the death or a race to the end, or we're going to compete, and we're going to lie and cheat our way through this, or we got to compete on the Shark Tank or whatever the show is. We got to compete against those other people. We got to win. We got to beat them. We got to win if it's football, basketball, baseball, soccer, highlight. I mean, it's all about winning. But you know what? It's not about beating other people. It's not about being best. Oh, I'm the best in the world. I'm number one. Woo! It's about being better than we were yesterday. It's about being better than you were yesterday. Not better than me, not better than I was yesterday, but better than you were yesterday. And when we begin to realize that, we don't compete against others. We don't worry about what others are thinking or feeling, or we don't worry if they're worried about us or if they're making fun of us. We tend to get out of the thinking mind and into the mindful mind. Do you see what I'm saying? When we lose those high expectations on others and ourselves, and we realize reality, and we begin to understand that, yes, we are not perfect, and we do fear certain things, and that's normal, and that's life, and other people fear things too, and you begin to understand, and you begin to realize that, yes, perfection is, not real. But you also begin to realize that why is perfection not real? Well, what does perfection mean? And I think that perfection in all reality means that you're good with yourself. You're happy, you're healthy, and you love yourself to a degree that you realize that you're not competing against others. You're not upset. You're not stressed out. But on the biggest deal is that you begin to lose that fear factor because you begin to realize that life is not a competition. Life is not a race. Life is basically a series of events that encapsulates an amazing life that we can choose to accept or we can choose to run from. And when we realize where our fear is instrumentally coming from, we can begin to understand how to let it go. And so I ask you right now to really go deep and figure out, where does your fear come from? Why is it magnified? What triggers your fear? Maybe start a journal, write it down. What triggers that fear? And how can you begin to back it up? How do you begin to get rid of it? How do you begin to slow it down, pinpoint it, and let go of it? Because fear is just another roadblock to our happiness, to our success. It's a roadblock to our success. Instead, it's one of those things that lead to our regret. And the last thing you want in life is a big helping of regret. So remember, fear is normal. To fear things is a normal human feeling. That's normal. But to be able to let that go, to be able to pinpoint it, let it go, and not action, not live our life based on past failures or past pains, and take our life 1 minute at a time, all of a sudden, guess what? You are the king, you are the queen, you are in charge of your life. And you have some amazing stuff to do, because now, for the first time, you're really realizing the real power that you're given. You took that fear away, and now you've taken the mask off as well. Stay tuned. I have a great show for you coming up next. And Live Your True Life Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back this time. I'll be back this time in 3 shakes.